All right. So we're gonna hustle through this. So Sue, good news is we will go fast, and so you can be out. This won't hopefully be too long for you. Um, um, so we're going to talk about the 10 ways to celebrate and reflect on the year. This is a tough time of year. As you can see by the number of people that showed up for a webinar in May, it is very hard. And so we just wanted to give some ideas on helping educators think about the school year, reflect with their kids, celebrate the year, celebrate the learning, and give some strategies on that. And all, of course, since this is Generation Schools Network and empowering education, that we're doing that with an SEL focus. All right, Zoom, I think we've got this down. We're good. We'll be just talking with you, Sue. So you can unmute anytime. Ask us questions anytime you want. That's one advantage to this. So my name's Zach Hess, and I'm a senior director of Generation Schools Network. I've been with Generation Schools Network for a couple of years. Before that, I was a middle school. Well, I started teaching in a youth correctional facility for youth 14 to 20 years old. Then I was a middle school teacher, science teacher. And then as a middle school administrator, big middle school, about 1,100 kids, 7th and 8th grade. And then I moved into the district level at our third largest district in Colorado. And I was the director of health, wellness, and prevention. Did a little stuff on my own for a while and then hooked up with Generation Schools and do a lot of their work around restorative practices, trauma informed, and a lot of things on the prevention side of the house.
And I'm CJ Roberts. I'm the director of Empowering Education, which is our curriculum for SEL. And I've been with Generation Schools for 6 years now. Prior to that, I ran a nonprofit for USA Swimming, which I just was in. I started a team and they just hit 10 years next year and they invited me back. So I get to go back and see them.
Oh, that's
kind of exciting. Yeah. So love coaching. That's my passion.
All right. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Quick. So one of the things, so Sue, first time for sharing now, is just reflecting on your year. This is something that I think is just good to do for ourselves with our peers. When we've done this presentation and had leaders on, principals and assistant principals and stuff, and like, do this in your staff meetings, do acknowledgments of the good things, but also the things that were thorns through the year. And I think it's great to do with your peers. It's great to do with your team. And it's also cool, really cool to do with your students. Sometimes you have to have a little thicker skin, but I think it's really good to talk with students around what were the things that they celebrated, what were the roses of the year, and then what were the things that were tough. And that's just good practice to do. And I particularly think it works very well in a circle. So if you are an educator that has experience running circles, and that's something that's part of your culture, doing this with a talking piece, doing this in circle is a pretty effective way to hear about the year and just have kids reflect. So, all right, Sue, give me a rose and a thorn. What was something really cool about this year, and what was something that was hard?
I guess a rose would be that because I teach technology, I found a really good website with resources for teaching digital citizenship and connecting it to real worlds with, the kids and the safety of being online. And as far as the thorns, well, depends on, we have a lot of children that are different, and sometimes it's difficult to get through the class when you're excited and everything, and a kid raises their hand and they're like, I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, those are hard for sure.
I mean, it wasn't really too bad of a year for me.
Well, that's good.
That's great.
All right, Phoebe, I know you weren't in a classroom, but since you're on this webinar, what you got, any roses and thorns for the year?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say honestly, a big rose has been, so Sue, you'll know that I started at Generation Schools Network just shy of just about 2 weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, just shy of 2 weeks ago. So a big rose for me has been starting this job, to be quite honest. Some thorns was honestly, my last job was a little bit challenging. I worked in higher ed, and so there were definitely some different challenges that posed themselves in a space like that. So yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Welcome, Phoebe.
Yeah, Phoebe, it's great to
you.
have you. All right. Another thing that we can do with the end of the year and celebrations is really dedicating that time to celebrate the learner. I mean, this is the reason we got into into education. This is why we do all this hard work, is that person in the classroom doing the learning. I think and a lot of people will do this. If you look at, yes, this is what we want to do at the end of the year, of course. I just would challenge everyone to try to make sure that it's a strength-based approach to celebrating the learner. And we're looking at part of that growth mindset, like, and that's part of this discussion around roses and thorns, right? How did you persevere, right? What kind of were you a courageous learner? Did you take risks? Those kind of things are so powerful. And I just think that helps all of us, I think, as an educator, even learn more from our kids as the year goes on. But for a student to get into that kind of work and that metacognition where they're actually thinking about their thinking about their learning, their strengths. And when we focus on that, I think it's really important for kiddos. They all can find that strength. It's really cool to build kind of a portfolio of that, have them do that. It's a nice celebration of learning. It's a nice recap of what they've done. And it's cool for parents. Like, I remember only 1 year, honestly, that this happened. I don't know, CJ, if you ever had it for any of your kids in school or anything, but I had one year where one of my kids' teachers did that, and they brought home kind of this little packet of like all the learning, and I thought it was so cool as a parent. Like I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. And then, but what I would have liked to see in that, and that's kind of what inspired me on this, was just some other thinking around where they struggled, how did they get through it? This was hard. How did you get through it? And just having them do some of that reflection is so important for them as a learner. Along with those lines, it's really important, I think, that we do the hard work of celebrating all learners. I think, oftentimes the kiddos that accelerate in our class, that do really well, those are the ones that get celebrated already by some feedback or test scores or those things. So kind of want to think about all the different types of learners that you have. If there's students that have an IEP or a 504, like, is there parts where you can have them reflect and celebrate on them making their goals? Did they make their IEP goals? Did they use the strategies? Did they learn a new strategy that they liked? And I think that's a really important thing to do. And it's not just the kids that got the A's in the classes, right? We gotta think past that and figure out, how do we celebrate all the kids in there? And I know for some of them, I get it. Some of the kiddos, it's a struggle. I totally understand. But and I was one of those learners. I was a kid with ADHD that, back in the 80s, they didn't know what that was. So I'm sure my teachers would say that I was challenging. But the teachers that celebrated my creativity, the ones that celebrated the things that I did well, those are the ones I remember. And I have just good memories of, and that kept me in learning. That kept me going through school and kept going the next one. The ones that defeated me because I was kid with attention things and I struggled in some areas, that didn't feel good, right? And you don't feel like a good learner. You don't feel like you want to do this. You don't want to work hard. And then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy going on as a kiddo. A lot goes on in their head. So doing that work to really celebrate them, I think, is really, really important. All right. Next thing, this I thought was a cool idea. So for a lot of teachers, right, and at the upper, middle school, high school, probably more so, we're doing those final exams. They're coming up. My daughter's a freshman in high school right now, and next week she is stressing out. Especially CJ. Okay, so she's on the track team, right? She made varsity track. She is out because of state for track. She is out Thursday and Friday of this week. She has tests in both of those days and then has to come back and do the finals. Then, oh yeah. So anyway, she's freaking out, right? And I know there's a lot of that going on. And right now at this time of year, there's these conflicts for sports, and there's the conflicts for all the final exams and other tests. But I read this somewhere and I thought this was such a good idea. Their celebration was the final. It was like they just presented it as a celebration of learning. And the teacher was giving an idea. They had food, they brought in music, they had like the cupcakes. They did it as if it was going to be an end of year celebration. But instead of just sitting around listening to music, watching a movie, eating cupcakes, it was, we're going to celebrate all the work you've done by taking this final exam. And they brought the celebration in. So just a different flip, and what they found. And so the guy did this longitudinally over 5 years and had data from before he'd done this to when he did this. And the test scores and the results were markedly better because of the mindset, just because we're celebrating. And it wasn't like, oh God, it's a final. It was, this is fun. There's food. Like, it's just the whole attitude changed. And then they were less stressed. So they went in and killed the exam. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to share for people to think a little differently, maybe, of what final exams traditionally are, is like, oh God, it's hard. Here we go. That kind of thing. Okay. Kindness celebrations. So I think these are a beautiful thing. But I want to also, be careful with this. We don't want it to be a popularity contest. We don't want it to turn into something that kids have never had this experience before in the classroom of being vulnerable, of taking feedback from their peers. Like, all these kind of things need to be set up. I think this is a beautiful way to celebrate the end of the year and to celebrate kids. And how amazing would it be as a parent to get something, that your kiddo is beaming about, and like, look at what all the kids said about me. Look what my teacher said about me at the end of year, and something that they have and they'll keep probably forever. They'll probably put that in their little treasure chest of things. And when they're 50, like me, they'll open it up and go, oh my God, look at my third, whatever. They loved me in my class. I think that stuff I think it's cool. So the idea is you have a piece of paper with each student's name, the teacher's name, the aide's name at the top. And then you take some time to write kind things, to celebrate them. What did you enjoy about them in class? Hey, I loved working in the group with you. We really kicked butt on that project. You're always so kind, and thanks for sharing the jump rope with me at recess. Or, I was really struggling, and, you you were able to help me out during this really tough, lesson, or whatever that is. I think it's a really cool thing. You have kids write on it, and you put it in a document protector. There's only 4 billion of those in a school, and send that home with the kids. And I think it's cool. But again, there needs to be some sort of a culture in the classroom of vulnerability, that social emotional learning type of culture where we talk about our feelings. We understand true feedback and real stuff that you're telling kids, instead of, I really thought those shoes you had were pretty, right? That was, what a pretty hairstyle. Those things, that's not, I want to kind of go away from those, like, really genuine things about the person. And again, that does take practice. So if that's the only thing you're going to do, and this is the first time you're going to do it, I really actually wouldn't recommend it. It could be hurtful. And the teachers, the adults, have to be smart also. They have to be aware, like, if one kid's paper isn't filling up, right? Like, we got to make sure that's not what happens, right? And so that's why when it's a practice, then kids know what the expectation is, and they'll find something, right? Even if the kids a struggle, I get it. We have those kids, and there are some kind things, and it's a good thing for them to practice, understand different kids, what their experiences have been, what they go through. Like, we can all still be kind, and we all need to work on that. Anyway, so
there's a good couple of other variations that you can do to kind of control some of that. Like, one time I did with stickers. So you give the kids love, to be interactive. And I think we really need to increase interactions verbally with each other. That's one thing that these things right here have prevented a lot of our kids, is that they're not very good verbally. And so when you can give them stickers and say, okay, every person you put a sticker on them, and you say to them, I really enjoyed being in that project with you. I really like your laugh. And you go around and you're covered in stickers. Or you can fill a bucket. You can get one of those little, like, sand buckets, and then they put, their little comments in the bucket. And then it's a little bit more personal. And you can control some of that too. But it would be really interesting to do that at the beginning of the year, like with very little interaction or knowledge of your peers, and then at the end of the year and see how different you opened up to certain people. I think that
That's a
would be
great
kind of
idea.
fun.
That
Yeah.
would be very cool. Yeah, love that. All right. Number 5, acknowledging emotions is huge. Acknowledging where we're at, allowing people to be where they're at. This time of year, this end of year, there are a lot of big emotions. And I think it's important to acknowledge those. Teachers, adults have big emotions this time of year. There's a lot of things going on. And students do too, and for a lot of different reasons. And I think when we prepare students to have these big emotions and say it's okay, right? I will never forget my daughter for all of elementary school, and I'm not even kidding. And she went to middle school in 6th grade. So from K5, we'd go the end of year celebration, and she would cry every time. Right? She had massive emotions and this grief and loss about leaving, what I guess to her was this I'm leaving all these kids and this teacher and all that, like those are huge. My daughter, I've always said, has emotional superpowers. There's a lot of kids there's a lot of adults that, I mean, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. We have emotional superpowers, right? We feel things big. We feel them hard. And I think it's important to acknowledge that with your students. Guys, it's the end of the year. It's beautiful outside. I know you got 10 days left. Let's talk about what's going on. How are we feeling? Start doing some of that work. And this is, again, good social emotional learning work, helping them be aware of their feelings. And then how do you manage that? What are strategies they can do? Hopefully, you've been talking about this over the whole year. Hopefully, these are things that you're talking with kids all the time, because kids have big emotions. We all have big emotions. It's just we see. I mean, I cannot tell you in my career how often I've heard, like, oh my God, the end of the year, I'm ready to kill these kids. Like, oh my God, just get them out of here. Like, right. Like, yes, I know we're stressed. We're feeling it as the adults, and the kids play off of that, and they are too. They're done. Right. There's a lot of things going on, and it's not all disrespectful. Like, it's not that. And I guess I really want to pull away from that idea and more about, like, there's a lot of things. A lot of kids are scared of what happens after school. This is that safe environment they have. This is the structure that they desire to have. And when they don't have it, it's not there in their families or in life outside of school. And that's hard. That's stressful. That's scary. Those are going to create big emotions for kids. There's a lot we can go into that. When we start talking about adverse childhood experiences being trauma informed, right? There's a lot that plays out at the end of the year. I've never seen kids sabotage themselves so badly than at the end of the year. For a lot of reasons, so I think it's just be proactive. Let's end the year and let's talk about this is what could happen and how are we going to do that. Remember your strategies. Remember mindfulness strategies. Remember our calm down corner that we have for you if you feel like that. Talk to me if you need a break, right? Make sure you're hydrated. Like a lot of those simple little things that you can give kids, those strategies, and they can do those. It'll pay off. It'll pay off for the kid, but it'll pay off for you as the adult in the classroom too. Challenge day or week. This is another way of celebrating them as a learner. I think it is around that growth mindset again. But it's also this idea of this autonomy and agency mixed in with like passion project kind of thing. Let them challenge themselves, and it's okay if they fail, right? Really challenge them at the end. Look at what we've done this year. I want you to dig deeper in something. I want you to pick one thing that you was really inspired, like something you like, but now you got to take it to the next level and see how that goes. And it's not so much did they nail it or not, but it was more celebrating the growth mindset. Did you take on a challenge, and did you put in the work to meet that challenge? Whether or not you passed or failed it, that's not you might have missed the mark, but did you persevere? Did you put in the work? Do you understand what that means to challenge yourselves? And I think this is something we can do a lot better in education for our students, and in giving them that opportunity. This is a great thing you can do as it's scaffolded, right? This is, you have your gifted and talented kiddos in the classroom. They're going to do something else to challenge themselves. You have the kids that have struggled. They're going to do something else, right? We're there to guide them through that as the adult, right? Let them lead that work, and you're helping guide them through it. So, yeah, I just thought this is a kind of a cool idea that to do at the end of the year, and celebrate the kids, and celebrate, all the hard work that they've had to do, all the stresses that have happened throughout the year, and here, use all those strategies. I might be front load this work a little bit by talking about those challenges, like we did with the roses and thorns, right? How did you get through these challenges? What did you do? Okay, because now I'm going to challenge you. Now I want you to go do something really tough. And so use those strategies to get through that. All right. That goes along definitely with the goal setting work for the next year. So reflect on the different aspects of the school year, and because there's more than just the academics. And I think that's an important thing for kiddos to think about as they look forward to the next year. Spend some time before the end of the year so that they have some of this reflection, lessons learned, understanding the things that they did well, maybe some of the things they struggle with, and set some goals for the next year. Look at it through an academics lens. Absolutely. Right? How did you do academically? Again, I'm celebrating all the kids. If you got straight A's, great. What is something academically you want to do, right? What is something you can do next year to challenge yourself? And what's a goal for next year, right? If you didn't pass one class, then what's your goal next year, right? Let's set a realistic goal. Let's help them set those good goals. Like good SMART goals. Have them get in the habit of doing these. What can you actually measure? What can you actually accomplish? Look at it socially. So much of school is this social work, right? We're constantly in these different social situations. As a youth, we're constantly having to figure this out, and it's hard, right? And it just gets harder as you go. The dynamics as you get into the upper grades of all the different relationships and all the stuff that's going on. How was this year socially for you? Did you make good choices? Did you succumb to peer pressure? Did you, were you kind? Or did you fall in with have them do some introspective self-reflection, and then, next year I'm going to be better. Next year when I see some kid maybe getting bullied, I'm actually not just going to be a bystander. I'll be an upstander, and I'm going to stand up. I'm going to do something for that next year. That's my goal. I didn't this year. I just kind of stood back and watched it happen, right? Push them to figure that part out, and then look at their extracurriculars. Another big piece of our educational journey. What are they doing outside of school? And if they've done nothing, I didn't do anything. Well, what are some interests? Find an interest. What could you do? Right? Could you start your own club? Could you talk to a teacher? Here in my district, if you want to do something and start a club, all you need is 10 friends and a teacher that'll sponsor it. And you can have a ping pong club, a gaming club, a Rubik's Cube club, whatever it is you want. Encourage them, make a goal. I want to do these things. This is something I'm passionate about, and I'd love to do that with my peers that are passionate about it too. If they're a sports person, what are your goals for next year? Make varsity, run a better time, win more of my matches, whatever it is, but have them go through that. So, and I think it's just really being specific. And again, it's back to the reflective piece of the end of the year, celebrating, and then helping prepare them for the next year. I think that's an important thing. Community service. So here's something you could do. Yes, I know this might be too stressful. This might take more work than you want to do, but it's just an idea. And I think you can scale this too. But at the end of the year, what can we do to show our kids how giving back is so important, how they can be agents of change, how they can do something. If this didn't happen throughout the year, and maybe a lot of schools, they're doing service projects a lot. It's just part of who they are, which I think is a beautiful thing. But maybe that's easy to do an end of year kind of celebration kind of thing for those kind of schools, but challenging those that aren't in those, are more traditional or not doing those kind of things. What could you do? One of the easy ones is just thinking about the people in the school community, people that made a positive impact for these kiddos, and have them think about that, and maybe write them a simple note, like, hey, thank you so much for helping me get the basketball that I kicked on the top of the roof of the school. Really appreciated that, right? Any of those kind of things, and help kids identify that. And that's a really cool thing for staff too. Be cognizant of all the staff, right? A lot of the people are unsung heroes that don't get a lot of feedback. Our front office staff, our janitor, our building engineers and janitor staff, our kitchen managers and our kitchen staff, bus drivers, those kind of guys. They don't get a lot of the parent emails about thanking them for driving my kid home, safely every day. It might be really cool to get a note like that from kids. And you know what? That kind of gratitude, that is a very important strategy for wellness, and helps our kids really, their mental health, when we remember what we're thankful for. The service project piece, yeah, maybe that fits. What could you do for your school, a local business? Do they need help doing something? Community members out, like if you're in a neighborhood and there's something in the neighborhood you could help with. I don't know. I was just throwing stuff, trying to think of some ideas out there, but I just think it's a neat idea for an end of year project or celebration, and gets kids appreciative of who they are and the positive people around them. All right, we are cruising. Let's see. Okay. So this is a definitely important thing, a little bit different than, some of these other kind of ideas of celebrating, but for sure a very important element for our students at the end of the year. We need to set that stage. We need to help them as the adults set that stage for that kid at the next grade level. Do they have everything they need? So our kiddos that are on ALPs, our advanced learning plans, or our individual education plans, or 504s, have they been in RTI, and are there plans? Like, those things get lost way too much from transition from year to year, especially if you're moving from one school to another. So it's an elementary transition to your middle school, or the middle transition to the high school. What are we doing as the adults to ensure? And maybe it's not the classroom's teacher's job necessarily, but it kind of is. I mean, they're in your class and they have an IEP, they have an ALP. Are we asking the questions? Are we making sure the teachers next year understand? Are you doing these matriculation meetings? We used to do that in our school, where the 8th grade and the 7th grade teachers would talk. The 7th grade teachers would inform, and it was strength-based and positive. It wasn't like, oh yeah, watch out, you get another Hess this year. Like, that's going to be fun. It's not that kind of conversation. It is about what can we do each year to ensure that kiddo is going to be successful in that class or that next grade level. What worked? What did they really respond for? They struggled in language arts, but man, in art, they were incredible. Anytime you can incorporate art into your lessons, this kid is going to kill it, right? Like, those kind of things that I think are very, very important to do. It definitely takes some works, but those plans, we just can't forget about them. We got to make sure they're up to date. We got to make sure they're being communicated. And I don't think that means just put it in a Google folder and send the link. It doesn't work. No, they don't open it, because everyone's super busy this time of year. So putting it in the schedule, making it happen, making sure leaders are setting time aside that we're talking. When I was at the middle school, we went in up to the high school and talked to the counselors, talked to the special educators, went through the caseloads of all the kids, talked about what they needed, where they were successful, where they weren't. I think this happens a lot, but if it's not, we need to make sure it is, for sure. And as a classroom teacher, like, that's your input is extremely important. You're there with the kiddo more. So advocate that you're part of those, so you really can give your feedback. I know it's another thing to do, but I think it's really important for the kiddos. All right, drum roll, number 10. Here we go. And we're only an hour in. I think we're like a half hour in. Told you I'd go fast. I think I saved it best for last, but I really, really do think this is important. The self-care conversation, and again, not to be disrespectful around like putting up with systems that are broken. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying it doesn't matter if you have the most beautifully run school system, building the best leaders in the entire world. Everything is great. The resources you have money left over. Like it doesn't matter. Education is still stressful. Working with children is still stressful. This time of year is super stressful. And it's not just because of the school stuff. It's not just because of what is going on with the kids and all those emotions and the pressure of getting done and getting things graded and into the grade book and a final. And oh my gosh, did my kids learn? And if they didn't, oh my, what did I do? This is ridiculous. Like, it's also, we have life, right? So right now, my wife and I are like crazy people, right? We have 2 kids at the end of the year with sports and a banquet and a final and a track meet that's way far away that we get to sit at for 7 hours. Like all these things, right? Like are stresses for us. So if I was in the classroom right now and I was trying to manage my family and the calendars and everything else going on, it is a lot, right? It's a lot. So as educators, educational leaders, as teachers, as support staff, whatever we are in a school, we've got to figure out how to help ourselves with our stress and manage it. And that is really, I think, finding a balance between these commitments at school and life. And making sure that you're leaving enough time for yourself and your family and being able to do those things. Sometimes we got to cut some things out. Well, Zach, the thing I'm going to cut out is celebrating the end of the year. Okay, good. Cut it all out. Don't do a damn thing I just said. 1 through 9, cut it out. Don't do it. Just take care of yourself. That's great, right? I think it's super important that you can make those decisions and find the balance so that you can maintain, your sanity, that for your family, but also for your kids. That, I think we forget that when we as the adults come in to a classroom dysregulated, overwhelmed, man, mirror neurons are a real thing. It's science, right? Kids feel that. They know it. They can tell that Mr. Hess is short. They can tell Mr. Hess is not in a good place right now. Like those things are a stress and that's scary to them, right? They're worried too. They don't know what's coming. Like all those kind of things. It just feeds off each other. So making sure we have effective ways to handle the stress is important. And that doesn't mean like, a bottle of wine every day for the last 10 days of school. That's not going to be very effective either. Really, truly, what are things that you can find in your life that are bringing you joy, that are creating balance, and that are reducing stress is going to be really important. I think some of the things that I think you could help with for end of year, some of the things you could do like in the classroom, in the school, and some things you can do with your kids, not just you, but I think are helpful, right? If you can find a way to get to school in enough time to have some time in that space for yourself. Mindfulness is science, man. It is one of the most research. It is the most research-based, effective way to improve your mental health. If you can find a moment before kids get in, before you're interrupted, to have a time in the space in your room, to have a mindfulness moment, even use some meditation and visualization of what you want to accomplish that day, what you're going to use to keep yourself calm when something comes, that you have to meet a challenge or a challenging student or a challenging administrator, right? Like, how are you going to handle those situations? A mindful moment, I think, is a super powerful way to start your day. The simple act of putting the agenda on the board, right? It just the schedule, the just knowing that you've got things taken care of, right? One, that agenda on the board is going to really help your kiddos, by the way. I mean, hopefully this is something you're doing all year long, but I just don't forget to do it at the end of the year. These are things that I think are very helpful for kiddos, especially stressed kids, when they know what's coming. There's not an unknown, what are we doing? I don't know what we're doing. Oh, it's right there. This is what we're doing. You're good. You don't have to stress, right? And it's same for you. And the act, I remember just when I would do it, just the act of going through the agenda and writing it on the board in quiet when no one was in my room, nothing, it was awesome. I was like, yes, I got this. This is my day. Okay. I mean, it was just a sense of like, calm, I'm good. Can you take walking breaks? Can you take some other breaks during your plan? I know there's a million things going on, and I know it feels like if I just sit here and don't do anything or watch my Instagram or get on TikTok for 20 minutes during my plan, that's good. I'm telling you right now, if you can get outside, if you can get something a little physical going on, it's going to be much better. And it'll pay dividends. Make sure you're coming to school with the bare necessities, the stuff that you need, enough water, enough healthy snacks, right? And coffee, it's okay. For me, it was definitely coffee. So some of those things that just set yourself up. What do you need during the day? What kind of snacks do you need? Being hydrated is key. So how do you do that? And just make sure that it's just available for you. The mindful moments, I think, throughout the day with your students is really, yes, at the beginning of the day with you, but involving your students in this, that's going to be helpful for everybody. Transitions are, and this as an educator, are some of the hardest times. Kids coming in after recess, coming after lunch, right? After their electives, right? And they're coming back into your classroom. So, after PE, bring kids in and let's have a mindful moment. It can be just a mindful breath that works great. One of the fun ones the kids like, and if you've never done it, it's a really fun thing to do, is just mindful eating. If there's no allergies to it, give them a Hershey's Kiss, right? All you do is simple, like find a good position, close your eyes or look down, put the Hershey's Kiss in your mouth. Do not chew it. Do not do anything. Just what can you taste right now as it's on your mouth, as your tongue? What does it feel like? I mean, you're just walking them through this. There's no set way you have to do this, right? Take it in phases. Okay, now chew it up. Let it sit on your tongue. What are you tasting? Just have fun with it, right? You can do it with fruit too. Like if there's allergies to chocolate, or that's just not what you do for healthy schools type of work, which I admire. If you're doing that, it's great. Use grapes, right? Use something that kids aren't going to have an allergy. Blueberry, whatever it is, it's fun to do. And it just breaks it up for a second. It does what mindfulness is supposed to do, bring you back into the moment, and then you can move on for the rest of the class. As many movement breaks as you can for these kiddos at the end of the school year, right? They're feeling it. It's nice outside, sun shining. Get them up moving. They're stressed. Get them up moving. It releases stress. It helps. And then do it with them. So don't just, okay, guys, we're going to do a mindful, and maybe it's elementary and we're putting on Go Noodle or whatever that one, those like online ones that they can use. Do it with them. It's going to be good for you too. Yes, there's a theme here about mindfulness. Before you leave for the day, right? Reflect, do a little quick before you get out of there, before you head home. Ground yourself in the end of the day. Just like kids need a transition break, so do we as adults. Some people have their own routine. My routine always was get in the house, change my clothes, got rid of change it, got in shorts or sweats and a hoodie, my running shoe, that's what I needed to do. And I could now transition to being dad and husband, right? But I think part of that, I wish I would have known and understood how to use mindfulness and done that before I left, right? Just kind of it's all quiet. And we're talking 5 minutes here in my classroom, and I could have just done a mindful breath and then left my classroom. I think my wife and kids would have liked that also. And then if you do have time, prepare that classroom before you leave, right? If you can, instead of the morning of the agenda, maybe you put the agenda at the end of the day. I know we don't often have very much energy left. I certainly didn't. I was really spent at the end of the day. But as much as I could do to get my classroom kind of organized, at least trash picked up, at least I don't know. It just felt good when I walked in the next morning. It was not chaos, right? I had these teacher friends of mine that would walk in 2 minutes before the bell ring. I could not fathom that. I just did not understand. I don't know how I would have lost my mind, right? So if you're all like me, some of that just being organized and having these calm moments to get yourself in the right mindset for the day. I can't say enough about giving yourself the space to do that. All right. What do we got? What do we got? Okay. Not yet. Any Sue or Phoebe? Any questions, any ideas, any of these things resonate with you, or things that you know, especially Sue, that maybe you might want to try or do, or you've done and you can say, yes, I totally did that and it was awesome. What are some things that you've done?
I like the idea of having them reflect on their year and talk, think about what their strengths were or what their weaknesses were and how they can improve upon that.
Yeah. Have you ever done anything like that with your students?
When I was the math teacher, yeah, we used to do things like that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking as like that I might change what I'm gonna do the last class with the kids, do something more reflective maybe.
Cool. Yeah, good. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions or anything you want to share? All right. Well, in the feedback, you can say it was fast and furious. And Zach and CJ got us out of there quickly. But yeah, you can if you get this, CJ, did you put that one did you put it in the chat already? Okay, so it's in the chat. Please fill that out. Any feedback is good. Our feedback might be maybe we don't do this in May. I don't know. We'll see. All right. If like Sue, if you're interested, GSN does a lot. There's you can contact me or Donna Trujillo, who wasn't in this webinar, but you can contact her. Big part of this work is empowering education, which CJ is in charge of. And maybe you want to put your email in there too. We also have a whole curriculum. It's based in mindfulness. It's a SEL curriculum. There's a lot of amazing resources that are available to people. And it's I think of a steal. It is very well priced. We work very well. CJ does all the hard work of working with schools. So Sue, maybe you're not the decision maker in that, but maybe it's something that you're interested in, or you want your administrators or some other people to explore in your school. Please have them reach out to CJ. If I don't know, CJ, if you put the website on there, you can explore empowering education. You can get there from the Generation Schools Network site. But specifically, if you just go to the link that CJ said, or forward that on to your leaders, there's a lot of things. We at GSN do a lot of work with schools, really come alongside schools to just really assess where they're at, what their needs are, and work with them to achieve the goals that they want to do. Got a pretty talented group of folks, all teachers for a long time, administrators, superintendents, a lot of people at different levels. So